Welcome to Who Runs This Park, Park Enthusiast segment, where we expand our universe and knowledge of experiences in the outdoors and at national parks through conversations with highly regarded and respected individuals in the outdoor world. As always, Who Runs This Park aims to be a catalyst for inspiration, exploration, and appreciation of our world's natural beauty. Today we have Kenzie Smith, a Christian outdoor content creator and host/creator of the podcast, My Valley, His Victory. Kenzie is an outdoor enthusiast and just completed the JMT this past September. The JMT, further known as the John Muir Trail, is a famous thru hike in the Sierra Nevada mountain range in California, starting in Yosemite Valley and ending at the summit of Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the lower 48. Kenzie is passionate about creating community for folks to recreate in the outdoors and passionate that you can learn how to recreate outdoors, whether that be skiing or backpacking, regardless of if you had exposure to it as a kid. I'm excited to learn about Kenzie's podcasts and content journey and also geek out on some of her rad adventures, forever adding to my ever-growing bucket list. Kenzie, welcome to Who Runs This Park, Park Enthusiasts.
Hey, Maddie. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, heck yeah. I would love to hear a little bit about your content journey and what that's looked like, how you decided to, go all in with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of happened totally random. Was not in my roadmap for my life or did not think that this is what I would be doing by any means. I was in corporate America a year and a half ago, traveling full time for my job and just really on call 24/7, totally engulfed in success and kind of that journey. That journey, however, left me very unfulfilled, very unhappy, and honestly had me in a place where I wasn't really focused or present in anything that I was doing. So I'm been married for about 4 years. And so it was really hard to be focused in my marriage, focused on my friends, focused on, just really anything. I felt like I was constantly, I've never owned a pager, but I can imagine just like having a pager and it's like going off all the time. And so you're constantly distracted. But I was super passionate about not the business that I was working for, but I loved the people that I worked with and was really invested in the company. I kind of grew up with the company and watched it, kind of go from being this baby company to a little bit bigger company and got some really awesome opportunities. And so I just felt like I couldn't leave. I felt like they kind of took a chance on me as a young adult and, just was really invested in that company. And March of last year, I was actually laid off from my job, which was honestly one of the biggest blessings that ever happened because I couldn't walk away, but I know that I needed to.
Yeah.
And so the company actually dissolved and sold, and a lot of things have happened since then. So it all happened at a really good time because I tell people like, I don't know if I could have been there and watched it go down the way that it did.
Yeah.
And so just super blessed and super thankful for getting out of that whenever I did. And me and my husband at that time were in the process of making a huge life change. And so we had planned in December of the previous year that we were going to travel the United States and spend 2 months at a time in 5 different cities to decide where we wanted to live.
Yeah.
So we were living in the Midwest at the time. I'm originally from Kansas, and we knew that we didn't want to live in the Midwest anymore. We lived in the South previously because that's where he's from, and just really knew we wanted to be in the mountains. So we picked 5 cities, 2 months at a time to really get a grasp on community, get a grasp on what's surrounding those areas, get a grasp on, just what actual life looks there. Because I feel like if you go anywhere for a week, it looks really cool. And I feel like I could move anywhere, after visiting for a week. And so anyway, so March, we actually left. I got laid off from my job in March. We left April 1st.
And you were already planning on doing that before getting laid off. Okay.
Yes. So my job, I traveled. And so as long as we were near an airport, which was the cities that we picked, I could still do my job and, do this thing. Got, permission from my boss to do it, all the things. And anyways, long story short, we have a rooftop tent. We do a lot of overlanding. We were going on this really cool adventure, exploring places that, a lot of people don't get the opportunity to explore, especially in depth like we were going to.
Yeah.
And so I just started reaching out to brands and I was just like, hey, this is what me and my husband are doing. If you want some average pictures. I mean, honestly, at the time, like, I'm not a photographer. I don't claim to be a photographer or a videographer. But if you want pictures of your gear in some really awesome, unique places, like, let me know. And I would love to take some pictures or videos for you of your stuff in these places. And we had, some pretty bucket list places that,
Yeah.
I put in the emails because
Yeah.
they are iconic. And I think, just for your brand, you want pictures in really cool places. And so anyways, long story short, that's how it started. And somehow in this process, it's kind of just become a part of what I do. Like I said, never really wanted to be a content creator or influencer. I hate that word.
I know.
And I
I
don't
feel
consider
that.
myself that. I consider myself a content creator, and I don't try to influence anybody to buy anything. I just give them the facts and tell them what I like and what I don't like,
Yeah.
and allow them to make it the best decision for them.
Yeah.
So anyways, in this process, after getting laid off from my job, I did not go back to work full time and kind of just was planning on taking a year to really figure out what I wanted to do, because the career path that I was in was not one that I ever saw myself in either. It kind of just happened the way life happens, and I kind of just ended up there. And so it was like, what do I really want to do? What am I really
Mhm.
passionate about? What sets my soul on fire? Where am I going to find purpose? Etc.
Yeah.
And so my goal was to build a kind of Christian outdoor community. And I do that now through women's retreats, my podcast. And at one time I had a blog where I was talking about lessons that I've learned, biblical lessons that I've learned through the outdoors. And
Mhm.
so really content creation is just a piece of it. And I'm really passionate about the outdoors. I love recreating outdoors. I love teaching people what I know. I'm not an expert at anything. I'll be the first one to tell you, but I'm always willing to share what I know. And yeah, I just have fun in the process, and I try to do things that I'm passionate about and that I would actually use. And, I think there's this level of content where it's like you make content for things that you would never use actually, and then trying to do things that actually teach and align with what you do. And so it's a piece of the puzzle for me. It's not necessarily maybe like my whole entire thing, but I think social media has to be a thing if you're
I know.
trying to build a brand or a community in any way. So
Yeah.
long answer, but I hope that answers it.
No, I love it. I love it. Two questions come from that. The first is, were there any brands that you got originally that were like, "Oh, that sounds great."
Yeah. So
That's so
the
awesome. I'm like, how can I do that?
yeah. So the first brand that ever said yes was Click Chairs, and they just sent us 2 chairs, and we gave them back, pictures and videos and things for them to use on their social medias. And it was fun. It was like, we had, like big, bulky, I don't know, chairs before. And whenever you overland, you do want everything to be pretty small. And so they fit perfectly into what we were doing. And I tried to make it brands that I wanted, to use or to try out, and that made sense with overlanding and that
Mhm.
sort of thing. So
Mhm. And is overlanding just when you're camping like above your car? Is that the term?
I think overlanding technically could be getting to your campsite via car, but ideally not like an actual campsite. If you want to go like
Okay.
super basic. So you go disperse camp out in the mountains with a vehicle,
Whoa.
I think is
Cool.
probably at the very basics. But then, you see overlanding rigs that are just wild. But you want to be able to like go solo, be able to get yourself out of a lot of situations. And yeah.
Cool.
But
And
yeah, I
is
don't think
it
you technically have to camp on top of your car, but maybe you do. I don't know the actual
okay?
definition.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to go, I guess, overland camping. I've never done that yet. So that's very cool. I always get like, I don't understand how you get a campsite, or like like the dispersed camping. I'm like, that's crazy. You just like camp anywhere.
It is crazy because whenever we planned our first road trip out to Utah, I booked campsites, and my husband was like, we should try the dispersed camping thing. And I'm the kind of person like, what if we show up and there's none? Like, then
Yeah.
what?
Or like, is dispersed camping like you're not even on a campsite?
No, I mean, so it depends. So sometimes there's like a little fire ring that somebody has built, and like they say, wherever you go, like try to go where it looks like somebody else has
Has been
been.
before. Yeah.
But a lot of times there's not. It just, you're driving down a dirt road, there's a tiny little, you see 2 tire tracks, go to the left and you follow it, and then
That's
it's
crazy.
just, yeah. A lot of
Is
them
it
are
like
not
usually
are
on BLM land?
BLM. A lot of national forests have kind
Okay.
of dispersed camping, a lot of public land. Yeah.
Okay. But then, like, you probably have to bring your own because, like, campsites usually have, like, a picnic table and a fire ring.
Yeah,
Um,
usually nothing.
how do you usually do a fire when you're
Depends on fire restrictions, but
well,
yes,
of course.
my husband says he's not going camping unless he can have a fire. So,
That's pretty fair. I mean, I love backpacking and you can't do fires in that situation, but it definitely adds to the allure when you can have a fire.
yeah.
Okay, that's really cool. Can you tell me a little bit more about the women's retreats?
Yeah, so I hosted my first one this past July. Hosted 12 girls from the US and Canada in
Wow.
Divide, Colorado. Partnered with another girl, her name's Audrey, and we kind of did it together, hosted it together. But yeah, just took some girls to the mountains of Divide, Colorado. Rented a really awesome property with a trail system on the property and a
Wow.
really nice house, and just really spent some intentional time with the Lord and teaching his word to these women and equipping them for life. And so
Yeah,
got to do spend some time worshiping God outside and just investing in some other young women. So
that's really cool. What was the process like kind of both creating and then promoting the retreat?
so for somebody who's never done anything like this
I
before,
mean,
which was me.
literally at me doing anything in this world, so I understand.
Yeah, same. So it was a lot of pivoting. I mean, it was a lot of pivoting. I'll say that. So had the idea to do a trip. Obviously, wanted to book an Airbnb, or something to host these women. But then wanted to take them on adventures as well and kind of do some stuff outside.
Right.
But then you have to essentially become an outdoor guide at that point, and then you have
Mhm.
to apply for certain permits in the outdoors and yada yada yada. So I did not want to do all of that.
Mhm.
That was not my kind of overall goal. Adventure was a small piece of it, and being outdoors was really important, but didn't have to be this like really big adventure. And so just happened to find the exact right property with some land and some trails on it. And if you do everything on the piece of land that you're renting, then you don't have to jump through some of those hoops. And so yeah, just a lot of pivoting, and promoting it was actually fairly easy. There's a couple Facebook groups that are like Christian outdoor Facebook
Hmm.
groups, and so promoted it within that. And I really don't feel like we had to try a lot of really unique strategies. I think that it was a desire that, or let me go back, it was a need that people were looking for. And so
Mm.
it sold. And
Yeah.
talking to the girls at the event, like, it didn't even matter that it was, me or Audrey. They were there for the community. They were there. It wasn't about us. It was about the purpose of the trip. And I think
Yeah.
that if you have a trip with a really good purpose, people are going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I'd also love to hear kind of the journey behind because as you said, the content piece is a piece of the larger puzzle, the podcast being a part of that. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that journey and we can both share our experiences of what it's like starting a podcast, not knowing what you're doing.
Yeah. So, kind of I'm going to keep this story really short, but I have not always been a Christian. I was atheist agnostic for about 15 years of my life, from middle school to, I'll say, about the age of 25. And so I have a really miraculous story and a really beautiful story in how I came to know the Lord. But for a long time, that story was filled with a lot of shame and guilt, and a lot
Mm,
of just, I didn't want to tell anybody about it. And so as a 25-year-old becoming a Christian, I didn't really know how to incorporate faith into a lot of the things that I was doing. And
yeah.
so last year, God was just kind of whispering in my ear, like, it's time. Like, it's time for you to step out and be this new person that you have been, but be vocal about it. And
Hmm.
it's time for you to share your story, because
Yeah.
yes, it is filled with a lot of shame, and there are a lot of reasons why I know that you don't want to share it, but I did something really miraculous in this season, and it's time to flip the script of it.
Mm,
And
mm,
so I kept hearing this whisper of, like, you need to share your story, you need to share your story, you need to share your story. And so I reached out to a podcast called the Christian Outdoor Podcast,
oh,
hosted by
cool.
Pete Rogers, which is a lot of hunting and fishing and kind of southern outdoor sports.
Okay.
And I reached out thinking he would say no, but I was like, "Hey, I'd love to be a guest on your podcast. I would love to share my story, you know." And he said, "Okay, let's do it." And so, anyway, shared my story on that podcast, and honestly, just the overwhelming response of people that I didn't even know, men, women, Christian, non-Christian, people that were just like, "Thank you so much for sharing this story." And the level of vulnerability that you
Mm,
shared was really impactful. You know, thank you for being open about certain things. Like, these are things that people don't talk about.
mm,
And I think that I grew up in a Christian culture of God is good, just pray about it, everything's okay. You know,
mhm,
like that Christians don't really go through hard things. And so, anyways, long story short, after being on that podcast, after hearing the response, I was like, I want to share people's stories, but also share how God has worked through those stories and how he's
mhm.
turned them to good, even though they may seem like they are the complete opposite of good. And so that is where My Valley His Victory was born and
That's awesome.
started.
Heck yeah. What stories have stuck with you the most?
Man, you gave me this question beforehand, and honestly, the there's no way to choose. Like,
Yeah.
they're all so unique and so different, and some of them are so life altering. There's people that have lost children, there's people that have
Mm,
been molested, sexually assaulted, all of the things, very horrific things. There's been things of people just, going through depression or anxiety that a lot of us feel on an everyday basis, or
mhm.
that a lot of people are feeling. And so I think they're all special in a different way, kind of depending on who's listening. But I
Yeah.
know that for me, probably the one that sticks out the most was Still Waters with Nick Reed. It's kind of a more recent one, but I think that it was a really important message in that God answers our prayers, but sometimes not in a way that we would ever expect. And
Mm,
so to me, that one was really impactful and was a good reminder to look back at the things that you prayed for and maybe see how God has shown up in those things
yeah.
and look at them through not a, this is what I wanted out of this situation, but is this prayer been answered? Has it been, door closed, door opened, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I guess going into we'll go into some like adventure stuff just because that's fun and
Heck yeah, that's fine.
I want to learn about some of these things you've done. But I think before doing that, I want to frame I think it was on your YouTube maybe, kind of sharing how you learned a lot of these outdoor skills as an adult. So I would love to hear that story and I would love people to listen to this episode and then just park enthusiasts in general and who runs this park and have this sense that it's never too late to become a lover of the outdoors.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Kansas. I think I've said that, but grew up in the Midwest. So Western mountain sports, climbing, rafting, backpacking, hiking, you name it, mountaineering does not
Yeah.
exist in
Yeah.
Kansas. I mean, going on a hike is going on a walk around a lake,
Correct.
maybe. And so, anyways, we as a family went on a lot of beach vacations. As a kid, we did a lot of beach life, and really wasn't exposed to really much in the outdoors. I really can't think of a childhood memory where we went camping or really anything of that nature. I mean, I kind of remember camping in my backyard, but I think all kids do that,
Yeah.
And we did go skiing one time as a family when I was probably 9 or 10.
Nice.
Um, but really other than that had really no experience in the outdoors. Now, like I said, I grew up on the lake, playing in the dirt. I was definitely always a tomboy, definitely always a little adventurer in whatever adventure I could get into
Yeah.
being in Kansas. But so that was built into me, naturally. I definitely aligned more to what my dad and my brother were doing instead of my mom and my sister.
Yeah.
And growing up, I was an athlete. I played pretty much any sport you can think of. I played volleyball in college, and
Nice.
about the time that I got into the outdoors was I I believe right after I stopped playing college volleyball. And so I saw my best friend go on a trip to Colorado. It's like 7 hours away from Kansas, and just looked like this really cool experience. And I was like, I want to do that. That looks
Yeah.
really cool. So I literally did almost the exact same trip with my boyfriend at the time.
You're like,
And
okay, great.
yeah,
Copy and
went,
repeat.
yep, went and did, a lot of like viewpoints, maybe small hikes. You're not really a hike, like you drive to the top of Pikes Peak and you're on a mountain, and
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of the more touristy, I'll say, outdoors. But something definitely sparked inside of me
Yeah.
on that trip, and I just kind of caught the bug for wanting to be in the mountains. And I had the opportunity shortly after college to go work in Alaska for a summer, and I think that that's probably that summer is really where all of this started. And so
Yeah.
it took a month to drive to Alaska and camped and hiked and did all this stuff along the way, and honestly had no idea what I was doing, and honestly probably put myself in a few situations that I, looking back now, I'm like, I was an idiot.
Yeah. You're like, that was stupid.
Yeah. But nothing crazy, nothing crazy. Just like, post holing through snow and,
Yeah.
different things, like nothing super dangerous. So anyways, long story short, I just really wanted to do it, and I got out there and I did it, and I tried to do as much research as I could to learn what I needed, and slowly started getting, like a little backpack for my day
Mm-hmm.
hikes and a
Mm-hmm.
camelback water bladder,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll never forget, I asked my parents for a backpack, like a backpacking backpack. Gosh, 7 years ago now. Didn't have a backpacking trip planned, didn't know how to backpack, didn't have anything for backpacking, and got a backpack, and I never it literally sat in my closet for like 4 years because I had
Hey,
no idea
that's,
what to
I
do
mean,
with it.
that's fair.
But I was just like, I know that I want to do this at some point. And so for Christmas, I want this backpack.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I guess I just, for me, being a college athlete, the outdoors and hiking, I was a day hiker for a long time. Like I would go out and conquer as many miles as I could in a day. That to me kind of replaced this gap in me that
Mm-hmm.
was there from competing and conquering and, whatever in the sports that I did all my life. And so I just really got enthralled with it and just said yes. I mean, honestly, I think that's where most people get stuck is they try to plan, and then they get stuck in that planning phase or that
Yeah.
wanting stage.
Yeah.
And like one of my coworkers was like, "Hey, do you want to go to West Virginia with me and go skiing?" And I was like, "Haven't skied since I was 10 and I only skied once in my whole life, but yes.
But yeah, let's
But
go.
yes, like let's do it." And picking things that are on the easier side and trying and failing and learning and researching and just doing. I mean, I think that we once we get to a certain age, we hate the idea of being a beginner or feeling like we don't know something. And we
Mm-hmm.
have the pressure to like feel like we know. And I'm not going to say that I didn't have that, but I was also willing to sit back and like learn.
Yeah.
And so and be a beginner and be okay with being a beginner. And I think that that's really been a valuable piece of this whole thing is just accepting being a beginner, asking people that you know. Like I slid in so many people's DMs a couple years ago like, "Hey, I'm going to be in Colorado. Do you want to go on a hike with me?" Like to strangers that I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that's how I have so many of my friends now is from our journey last year when we traveled is just like reaching out to strangers on Instagram, like Meg, the girl that I hiked the John Muir Trail with. I met her on Instagram and learning from them like, "Hey, I see that you're a climber. Like is there any way that you would be interested in helping me learn how to climb or
Yeah.
whatever?" And some people say no and some people have zero desire to teach others, and that's okay. But don't like take no as you shouldn't do it. Just you have to
Yeah.
find somebody else.
Well, for everyone listening, I literally saw on Kenzie's podcast of like the passion of creating a women's outdoors community. And so I slid into her DMs after we had already booked this interview, but I literally was like, so I will go anywhere for an adventure. So just let me know. So that's,
Yes.
I mean, candidly, what I'm starting to do is like, how do I build up friendships in the outdoor space? Because I have great friends that I cherish and I adore, but am not necessarily pushed in the outdoor capacities. And
Yep.
so I'm kind of learning. I've been on my own journey of learning that I actually have a big skill set in that, so can bring my friends along, like skill sets that I've built up from going on backpacking trips in college through the like outdoors group, and like taking my sister on her first backpacking trip, and like I can be that role
Yeah.
to others and take them on their first, but then I want to grow my skills and go with people who are either also learning or have more experience than I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. That's kind of how you've built up a community of folks to, you know, do all that with.
Yeah. And it's fun because you meet people that you would never get to meet. And
Yeah.
it's just like there's so many opportunities nowadays for you to find community if you're looking for it.
Hmm.
I think that so many people are fearful of if I reach out, this makes it look like I don't have any friends. And it's like, no, that's not the case. I have, like you said, I have friends that I adore and love. They're just not into the same things that I am.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And so I think that there's, everybody on social media is doing trova trips, or there's like these women's trips that you can go and be a part of that are just solely adventure based. And it's like
Hmm.
if you don't have community and that's the community that you're looking for, go and sign up for one of those trips.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they cost money, but you'll learn very quickly whether or not you actually like it. And
Yeah.
so I think that you have to ask yourself the question, what am I looking to get out of the outdoors? And then you have to ask yourself the question of what am I willing to do in the outdoors? And then you have to find the people that are doing those things and try to become involved and raise your
Yeah.
hand and ask and say, "Hey, I would love to be a part of this. How can I be a part of it?"
Well, and there's so like I think there's this deep desire with a lot of women of not knowing maybe how to get out there, but like wanting that. And like just you can see that with just the number of people that are signing up for Trova trips and going like, by themselves, which again, it doesn't mean like I went with, if you know Knowles,
Yeah.
National Outdoor
Mhm.
Leadership
Yep.
School,
Yep.
I went on a backpacking or no, a backcountry ski trip with them in Japan and went by myself. Everyone there in the group had come by themselves.
Yep.
And like, some were married, some were in long-term relationships, some had families, like, but it was just all these people who had this interest. And I chose that trip because I love skiing, but I know I don't have the skill set to go backcountry skiing by myself. Like I needed to go with an expert and learn and then have that community and stuff. And so
Yep.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
it makes me excited thinking about that because I feel like I'm at the beginning of that process of like starting to reach out to people and create more of those or be more intentional about having those big adventurous trips.
Yeah.
Um,
I think something you said is really important. Like, most of my adventures for 5 years were by myself. And so you have to be okay going alone and
yeah.
being uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
think that's another thing we don't really like in this world is being uncomfortable.
Mhm.
But don't wait for other people. And then secondly, something that you said is that women are fearful a little bit of the outdoors, and I think there's definitely a stigma around that, and I have probably a more staunchly opinion in one way or the other, but I I think our normal everyday life is more dangerous than being in the
Yeah.
outdoors. And
Honestly, probably.
like, people make it seem like it's so dangerous, and don't get me wrong, respect the heck out of the outdoors. There's a
Mhm.
lot that you do need to know and that you need to understand, but if you know those things and you're recreating responsibly, I think that, I might be a little bit more scared of my everyday life.
Yeah. I know.
But we gotta get
That's
rid of that stigma that it's dangerous and that women are gonna be abducted in the like, I hear all these crazy things and I'm just like, "Y'all, stop."
yeah, like that can happen
It's
literally
more
walking down
likely
the
to
street
happen in your
in your neighborhood, but also don't love thinking about that, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about, speaking of some of the adventures you've done, I think the most recent was the JMT. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that experience and what it was like prepping for it, what it was like actually doing it, all of that.
Yeah. So, like Maddie said, the John Muir Trail is a 211-mile trek through the Sierra Nevadas in California. And it is a through hike, smaller through hike. And
Mhm.
I have done a good bit of backpacking. Again, I'm not a lifetime Haven't been doing this my whole life, haven't been whatever. But the longest trip I had been on before this was, I think, about 70 miles. And
Oh,
so this
wow.
was definitely a step out of a step forward, and was my first through hike where I actually had to plan resupplies and had to
Hmm.
think about those kinds of things. And so huge planning process, huge learning curve, but there's so many great resources out there. Google search away, YouTube videos,
Yeah.
all the things that really helped me on that process. And yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. Super thankful that I got the opportunity to do it. It was really hard, it was really challenging, but it was so great, so wonderful, so beautiful. Everyone's like, "How was it?" And I'm like, I feel like I should say good, but that doesn't even begin to describe it. Like,
Yeah.
I feel almost like it was a dream, like that it didn't actually happen,
Hmm.
because it is so staunchly different than my everyday life that it doesn't seem real. And so
Yeah.
as I look back on it, I like have a hard time even like wrapping my mind or words around the experience, because it's just something that can truly only be experienced. Being out in the wilderness for 20 days, having to think about and focus solely on the day that's in front of you and not worrying
Hmm.
about tomorrow,
Hmm.
just focusing on survival is not the right word, but where am I going to get water? Where am I going to sleep tonight? Where am I going to whatever? It's just so different than
Well,
our normal everyday life.
and I think also from like a caloric perspective of like, rather than like, oh, is this healthy? Is this not? It's like so much more just like mathematical of like,
Yeah.
which is kind of nice of just like, okay, like I need to make sure I get X amount of calories because you're literally just seeing it as energy
Yep.
rather than like, oh, is it this fancy restaurant or oh, is it healthy or oh, like, I don't know. I'm
Yep.
intrigued by that also.
Yeah, you definitely think about food in a different way. Like, I'm not one that eats a lot of sweets or candy, but I was looking forward to my Snickers that I packed,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know, ate some things that I normally wouldn't eat, but also lost 7 or 8 pounds in the process, and
Yeah.
so ate a lot of food, ate some very unhealthy food, but it was fuel, and it was calories, and that's
Yeah.
all that really matters in that process. And what weight calorie ratio, trying to find things that are high in calories but low weight and all the things. But yeah, it was an epic experience that challenged me in new ways. It lit new sparks and flames inside of
Mm.
me for different things. And yeah, I mean, I know that I'm super blessed that I got to experience it. I know not many people ever will or even want to.
Hmm.
I think that's a whole nother thing, but different things for different people. But and that I'm physically capable.
Yeah.
I think that doing something like that, it was hard. It was really physically hard. And we saw a girl on the trail, and she had a shirt on and it said JMT 2024. It's supposed to be hard. And I think that was a really good reminder of just a lot of things in life. Like,
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be easy.
And like the
And
joy comes from it being hard. I think something I'm realizing is the planning of adventures also brings me a lot of joy. And so, like, the
yeah,
anticipation and like the amount of work that goes into preparing for the JMT is really cool. And so, that also is so fun. Like, that lead up, it's probably overwhelming at the
yeah.
beginning, but uh,
The good thing is a lot of times the permit system for this is you apply for the lottery like 6 months out, and so you have a good bit of planning. Like, I don't think most people are planning it last minute, but
yeah,
we did see girls that were out there, no resupplies, no planning, lived out of hiker boxes. Like, not my cup of tea, not my
not my
personality,
not
but
my path, but
but
good for them.
kudos, like, yeah, this was their first backpacking trip. I'm like,
The JMT was their first backpacking trip.
yep, yep.
That's insane. Like,
It's a
yeah,
little
that's
dangerous
insane.
in my opinion if you don't know, but,
But to each his own.
yeah, to each their own. That is for sure. I was just like, wow. But yeah, the JMT was something that 5 years ago, I said I was going to do the year I turned 30, and this was the year that I turned 30. And when I made
Heck
that
yeah.
commitment to myself, I had never been on a backpacking trip. So don't ask me why I did it, but it remained, it stuck. I was reminded of it every year. And
That's
so
amazing.
we went out there and we got it done.
Yeah, heck yeah. Why do you think you picked, like, how'd you hear about it? And why do you think you picked it?
So I was in Yosemite visiting a friend, and she was talking about a friend who had just done it. And I don't know why, but I was like, that sounds like something I want to do in the future. I had only ever day hiked at that point.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
no, I learned about the JMT this year. So I got to
Yeah.
figure out what age I want to do it at. That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it was good. It was exciting. It was monotonous. There are days that I could have been done and I would have been happy being done, but really thankful that we finished and that we pushed through, and we faced some snowstorms and
Oh,
all
wow.
sorts of things, but we did it. And
Well,
I'm
that's
really
kind of
really proud of us, cuz we're both, me and Meg are both Midwest girls who have learned most of this stuff,
as adults.
as adults. And so we just say, like, if we can do it, anybody can learn, but
Yeah, I think I would feel really, well, obviously proud of like completing it. I think also dealing with like snowstorms, that's something that kind of, I don't know if freaks me out is the right word, but like I just don't have experience with. I've been pretty lucky on backpacking trips where the weather's been pretty great. So I haven't had to deal with that and don't know how I would handle it. And like I am a little bit more like on your side of preparing for things. And so for that, I'm like, I don't know how you prepare for that.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, we knew that we would most likely get snowed on the
yeah.
month that we picked to do it. So we were prepared in a sense, but like you're saying, I'm a pretty, for the most part, fair weather adventurer, I would
Yeah.
say. Like, I pick good weather and I haven't done anything crazy and insane weather. And so even though I was prepared, I definitely was nervous because the mountains are unpredictable in a way.
Hmm.
And so it's like, yeah, it says it's gonna snow 2 inches, but what if it snows a foot? You know?
Hmm. Hmm.
But luckily it was enough to spike my concern a little bit, but it wasn't enough to where I felt like we were in danger. And so for me, I was actually really thankful that it snowed and that I got to experience this, because it broadened my outdoor experience and
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
taught me some things that I can implement in the future. So,
The one question that is more like I'm just curious about with through hikes is it because you don't eat that many fruits and vegetables when you're out there, right? Like,
yeah,
does that feel weird on your body? Do you crave like a salad, or are you just hungry and it doesn't matter?
I think there's some ways you could do vegetables. I don't know, or maybe fruit, like you could do like a greens powder or something if
Yeah.
your body needs that. I think that there's usually some vegetables in, like, if you do dehydrated dinners, there's usually some
Yeah.
vegetables in there.
Yeah.
For me, it wasn't necessarily a food that I craved. It was more a texture. So I wanted
Mm,
chips because everything I had eaten for 20 days was not soggy, but like it's a bar or it's oatmeal or it's a dehydrated dinner. And so nothing's crunchy,
yeah. Yeah.
you know? And so for me, all I could think about was, I want chips because I want something crunchy.
Yeah, something like that has some
Yeah.
or not sustenance, but
The
a bite to
texture.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about the Highlander also, because I was researching that a little bit and I'm curious kind of just to hear about your
Nice.
experience doing it and you maybe can share with folks what it actually is.
Yeah, so my favorite event every year, I love Highlander. I could talk about this for a whole podcast, but it is a hiking event in the US, and actually outside of the US. It started in Croatia, so they're all over the
Whoa.
world. But it's a hiking event. So I tell people to think of a marathon, but it's not a race. I want to be very clear about that. It is not a race. But there's a start line, there's a finish line. They plan the route for you. They plan everything that you need for a backpacking trip. All you got to do is show up, and you can pick a format. So they have anything from 2 days to 5 days.
Wow.
And you start at the starting line. You make it to the checkpoint, which is camp. Everybody camps in the same place every
Oh,
night.
so fun.
And then they have activities every night. So they have people speak on certain things. They have people do workshops. They have yoga. They have a PT person there. They have just exciting, like, people are ringing bells for you to come into the checkpoint. Like, it's kind of a party, but not a party, a celebration maybe.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it is a hiking event that you can do. People have gone by themselves, people have come in groups, but it's just opportunity for people to hike in community and get to know people and learn about the outdoors if they, want to learn about the outdoors. In my mind, it takes every reason why someone would not want to go on a backpacking trip and throws it out the window. So if you're like, I really desire to backpack, but I don't know what gear to use, I don't know how to plan the trip, I don't know how to do anything, they do all of that for you. You
That's so
can
cool.
rent a full backpack, gear
Wow.
everything so you can
Wow.
try out the activity before
Yeah.
you maybe commit
Invest.
to some of those things.
Yeah.
They plan your food, they plan the water, they plan the route, they plan, I mean, literally everything. All you have to do is show up in physical condition, and it's truly there to get people in the outdoors and community together and get people outdoors and to teach them about the outdoors.
What is the food situation like? Do they give everyone food or do they have food at the checkpoints and stuff like that?
So I've only done the 5-day events, which is 60 miles over 5
Okay.
days.
Okay.
And they give you your food at the checkpoint every night for the next day. So they give
Oh,
you
that's so
breakfast,
cool.
snack, lunch, dinner, all the things. You have plenty of food, and it's backpacking meals for most of it. But then there's always one night on the 5-day that they cater in a dinner. And so there's one night that I think they've done pasta on both of the trips that I've been on. But I know the year before they did like a taco bar.
That's so fun.
But yeah, so it's a lot of people in the outdoors all recreating together, experiencing the outdoors together, and it's a really, really, really beautiful event. If you're in the outdoor community, you want to be in the outdoor community, you are a triple crowner who has hiked all of the major trails in the US, or you have never been on a backpacking trip before,
It's for
you will
you.
love it. Like, there's
Wow.
everybody in between at this event, and it is just so fun. And the people I've met there, I mean, that's my favorite part, is just the people.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a really, really awesome event that I would highly recommend to anybody.
That's awesome. The kind of as we wrap up our time, there are so many directions I could go in, so many areas I want to keep chatting about, but
We can keep talking. Your episode
the
just might be long.
yeah,
Part one,
the
part two.
yeah, exactly. But I guess what I'm kind of looking forward from a both content idea and bucket list idea. I'd love to know what's on your mind with that in terms of like, do you have any adventures on your bucket list? And then do you have any big content ideas in the works?
Yeah. So my bucket list is probably like yours. It's ever evolving and ever changing, and it's
Yes.
super, super, super long. But the things that seem like they're within grasp maybe next year is I live in Utah now. I just moved to Utah in January, and I would really like to hike the Highlander Trail,
Okay.
which is about 107 miles in the Uintas here in Utah. So that is one thing that I have kind of starred and asterisked and want to make a priority for
Yeah.
next year. I will go back to Highlander next year, which is, like I just shared, my favorite event, and I will go for as long as I
Where is
can.
it next year?
It's in Big Bear Lake, California.
Oh, cool.
And so that is something that I try to do every year. And then yeah, there's a lot of other little things, but those are the two big ones that I know for sure. I'm going to Hawaii in January. So
Oh, heck yeah.
looking forward to that, getting a little different experience, not
Yeah.
truly mountains, beach mountains, kind of a
Are you
little bit of both.
backpacking there or is that more like beach
I
relax?
I haven't decided what I'm doing there yet. My
Okay.
husband is going for work and I'm going along. So,
Oh, heck yeah.
probably not backpacking, honestly, probably just a lot of day adventures. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of on the to-do list. Obviously, ski season is about to approach, and I normally try to get on the slopes. Unsure what that looks like for this year. I just really, really am kind of all in on backpacking, and I have been for a while, and I'm kind of just looking for places I can go backpacking this winter.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Um,
oh, like would you snow camp or you go somewhere where it's warmer?
maybe both.
Snow
Maybe
camping
both,
would be
but
really
definitely, I mean, ideally a go warmer, but would be interested in doing some snow camping. I will ski, but skiing's kind of my very relaxed hobby that I do with friends.
yeah.
And so, anyways, that's what's in the works for that. Other than that, or for content, right now I'm just really focused on how do I put together my experience from the John Muir Trail. I think
Mhm.
that it's really stumped me, and it's one of those experiences is it's just really hard to put into words or even videos. And so that is kind of what I'm focused on right now. I have really made a shift to YouTube, as I
Oh, cool.
have really just, it's brought me a lot more joy and fulfillment to do educational things instead of trendy things.
Mm,
And so right now I'm kind of putting a lot of effort into YouTube and developing out some educational content. And so I have some ideas on that, but nothing radical or, revolutionary on
yeah.
that front. But yeah, I have some friends that their kids are really wanting to get into backpacking. And so I went and spent the night with one of them the other night and taught them some of the basics and went over the 10 essentials of your backpack and showed them, some of the how to filter water, how to use a stove, that sort of thing. And so maybe there'll be a little series in that. But yeah, just kind of focusing on the JMT and
Yeah.
trying to put out content that is helpful
I
and
mean,
maybe not just consumable. So
as someone who wants to do the JMT at some point, I'm all for the educational JMT videos. So
yeah, my
I think,
resupply video is live, and then me and Meg did a Q&A that will be coming out next week.
oh,
And
heck yeah, I'll
so
have to check those out.
that will be that, and then from there I'll do more on the actual experience. But yeah,
Heck
stay
yeah.
tuned.
I like the idea of like bringing people on their first backpacking experiences. Like that could be a fun, I mean, that's even a fun like business idea of
Yeah,
like teaching people. I guess like there are organizations that do that, but
yeah,
from a community perspective, but like you said, getting all the permits and everything
yeah,
is probably a little challenging.
yeah. The
So,
minute you turn it into a business, it changes the
yeah,
freedom to
when
go
you're doing just
outdoors.
like with friends, it's very different. But I also, similar to you, I love kind of sharing. It's not a ton, but sharing what I know
Yeah,
and taking people out on their first backpacking trips.
yeah,
So I love
yeah,
that you're doing that. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah,
Heck yeah.
thanks.
Well, thank you for coming on the podcast and just sharing a little bit about your journey and passions. And yeah, it's fun to talk to like minded adventure bucket list seekers. It's very inspirational.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a blast. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Hey everyone, thanks for listening today. If you like this podcast, please share the word. Who Runs This Park's success relies on you rating, reviewing, and sharing the word about the podcast with your friends. If you have an idea for someone you want me to interview for this new segment, send me an email at maddie@whorunsThispark.com or DM me on Instagram @whorunsThispark, and we'll make it happen. Thanks again. So thankful for listeners like you. See you next week.